A key principle governing the natural world, one so fundamental it's almost invisible, is that animals adapt to thrive in particular habitats. What we call an animal's character isn't a random assortment of whims. It is essentially a finely tuned set of traits that gives it the maximal opportunity to flourish in very specific circumstances. Consider the owl, a creature of shadow and silence. Its character furtive, nocturnal, with hearing so precise it can pinpoint a mouse under a foot of snow is a direct response to a habitat crowded with daytime competitors. To succeed where others hunt, it must master the night. Think of the humble stick insect. Its docile nature and its breathtaking ability to disappear into a background of twigs and branches is its masterpiece of survival, a strategy designed to avoid the ever-watchful eyes of predators like rodents and spiders. And what are the African wild dogs? Their character is intensely social, collaborative, communicative, and respectful of hierarchies. This isn't just for companionship. It is the very engine of their success, lending them the coordinated power needed to corner swift prey like impala and springboks. Each one is a perfect solution to a specific environmental problem. We humans, in the end, beneath our complex layer of civilization, culture, and technology, are not so very different. We too are animals, and we too adapt our characters to suit our specific habitats. But for us, habitat means something far more intimate and defining than a corner of the jungle or a stretch of grassland. Our primary habitat, the one that shapes us most profoundly, is our family of birth. Just like any other animal, we arrive utterly defenseless into these highly distinctive circumstances. A newborn child's brain is a marvel of neuroplasticity, ready to be molded. For that child, the family isn't just part of the world. For many years, it is the entire world. Survival within that tiny, all-important ecosystem is the child's single most critical mission. And so, with the unconscious, brilliant intuition of a creature striving to live, we begin to adapt. In certain families, it will, in short order, become obvious to the highly attuned psyche of a child that success and safety require one to keep a very low profile. In a home dominated by a volatile or angry parent, the child learns that being invisible is a form of armor. They learn not to have needs, not to make noise, and never, ever to challenge the reigning figure of authority. In other habitats, the opposite lesson is learned. In a family where affection is scarce or parents are distracted, a child will quickly learn that they must constantly perform funny, be charming, be the entertainer in order to be noticed, and receive a crumb of validation. In still others, a child might guess that the only way to lay claim to a scarce supply of attention is to act up, to get into certain forms of trouble. Negative attention, their young psyche concludes, is better than no attention at all. And the archetypes continue. There's the little adult, the child who adapts to a parent's immaturity or absence by becoming hyper-responsible, managing schedules, and caring for younger siblings. Their habitat required a caretaker, so they became one. There's the achiever, who learns that love in their home is conditional upon performance. Their character becomes a relentless drive for success, perfect grades. Athletic trophies is a way to secure their place in the family. Each of these characters is a brilliant, creative solution to the unique challenges of their first habitat. This thesis can be profoundly helpful. It opens up avenues of deep compassion when we encounter people whose behavior is especially puzzling or maddening. Instead of judging, we can become curious. Why does a certain person constantly tell lies, even small, unnecessary ones? Why does another person find it so hard to be emotionally warm or vulnerable? Before we rush to label them, we can ask, what kind of habitat would make this behavior a necessary survival skill? Evasion from the truth might be a vital, life-preserving strategy when there is someone furious and intolerant in the house, a person for whom any small mistake means catastrophic punishment. Lying, in that context, isn't a moral failure, it's a shield. Likewise, an impenetrable emotional reserve may be a highly intelligent, adaptive move when a primary caregiver is emotionally erratic, absent, or uses a child's vulnerability against them. If showing your heart gets it trampled, you learn to build a fortress around it. Here, however, lies the great, tragic irony of the human condition. What makes life so notoriously difficult for us, as for many animals, is that our habitats do not stand still. The world changes. We grow up. We leave home. And as the places we dwell in alter, the very traits that we originally developed to cope with them risk becoming either redundant or plain problematic. The survival kit from our past becomes the source of our suffering in the present. That shouty, aggressive manner that made perfect sense when you had to fight for your share against four burly, competitive siblings. In the context of an adult romantic relationship or a collaborative office environment, it now gives rise to severe malfunction and constant upset. That hyper-vigilant outlook, the constant scanning for threats, the lightning-fast panic responses, the round-the-clock alarm system in your nerves? It was a stroke of genius that guaranteed your safety in a childhood home with an abusive or unpredictable parent. But now, in your adult life, that same system destroys any chance of the peaceful, settled existence you crave and deserve. It sabotages relationships with suspicion and suffocates your own spirit with anxiety. The entertainer who could light up the family room now feels hollow and unseen unless they are the center of attention. The little adult becomes a compulsive people pleaser, burning themselves out by taking on everyone else's burdens, unable to even identify their own needs. The history of the animal kingdom is filled with melancholy examples of this failure to adapt. To be a light-speckled moth was a wholly strategic advantage on lichen-covered trees. But after the Industrial Revolution coated those trees in black soot, that same coloration became a ticket to evolutionary disaster. It was once brilliant for a German shepherd to be territorial and try to bite most things that came its way on a remote farm. Yet that same trait becomes a route to ostracism and tragedy once it has to dwell in tightly packed cities filled with curious young children. We may ourselves, without even realizing it, be behaving like that speckled moth on a sooty tree. We are operating with an outdated map. Our closed characters, our reflexive deceitfulness, our manic need for joy, or our round-the-clock fear may be the ghosts of habitats we left behind decades ago. Our angry father, our manipulative mother, our jealous siblings, or our overly moralistic caregiver are no longer standing over us. And yet, the traits we perfected to cope with them endure, continuously marring our relationships, our careers, and our relationship with ourselves. It may be time to say farewell to much in our characters that was only ever a clever, creative, and necessary strategy for survival in a narrow world that no longer exists. But this farewell is not a mournful one. It is not about blaming our past or remaining its victim. Instead, it is a declaration of freedom, a moment of profound empowerment. Recognizing that these traits are not our immutable core identity, but rather well-worn tools from a different time, allows us to do something remarkable. We can consciously and deliberately choose new ones. We can put down the old tools that no longer serve us. This is the true, beautiful evolution of the human spirit, to adapt not just for survival, but for joy, for peace, and for love. We can learn to replace hypervigilance with earned trust. We can soften emotional reserve into shared vulnerability. We can transform outdated defensive strategies into open, authentic connection. We have the remarkable capacity to become the architects of our own character, to redesign our inner world, to flourish not in the habitat of our past, but in the new, wider, and more hopeful habitats we now choose to create for ourselves. If this idea of consciously adapting for a better future resonates with you, and you'd like to explore more tools and insights for understanding yourself and thriving in the present, please consider subscribing to our channel. We are dedicated to creating content that helps us all live more intentional, compassionate, and fulfilling lives. Thank you for watching.